Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including Governor Katie Hobbs announcing her re-election bid. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Jessica Boehm from Axios Phoenix, Wayne Schutsky from KJZZ Radio, and Howie Fisher from Capital Media Services. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, Jessica, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
And we got the governor who announces her re-election, but it's not really a surprise, is it?
I wasn't surprised. No, I don't think anyone was surprised. Everybody knew it was coming, but this is her chance to finally start to frame the conversation. And she's doing so by trying to paint herself as this kind of pragmatic, not ideological person, essentially setting herself up to have a big difference from whoever her Republican opponent will be.
I think she said it's not about politics.
It's never about politics.
I think it is about politics, isn't it? Yes.
I was like, woman has over 200 vetoes. I could work well across the aisle. You know, it's not about politics. And then her commercials that she's already got up, she's talking about people reacting because there are tariffs to high food costs. What the heck does that have to do with anything?
And wait, apparently affordable housing and border security, she brought those things up. Those things obviously, they test these things, and that seems like something she thinks she can run on.
Yeah, and she's done some stuff on border security when we're talking about putting some money into kind of assisting with drug interdiction, human trafficking, that kind of thing near the border. Definitely not as aggressive as Republicans would like. Whoever her opponent is going to point out that she vetoed a bill that was ultimately passed by voters on border security and immigration. But yeah, she's kind of hitting all the hits. Anyone who lives in Arizona knows that housing prices, for instance, are going out of control. And so she just kind of wants to paint herself as a champion of kind of the working class voter, the middle income, middle American voter.
And the tricky part, though, is some of the stuff that has been done as a bipartisan fashion. Assured water supply certificates, what just happened with EPCOR. Nobody understands that. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. It means something, certainly the folks who are in Buckeye and the folks who are in Queen Creek. But again, that does not, get votes.
She did, though. She did criticize in a general way, I think, Republicans in general for supporting the budget bill, for supporting the big, beautiful, whatever it is, budget bill. That I think we'll probably see more of, or will we see more? Because you've got a couple of congressmen on the other side.
Well, the problem of, again, this is the same thing about her talking about tariffs. Has nothing to do with Arizona. It's nice that she can reach out and slap some Republicans around. What she needs to be talking about is, did she get left with a surplus or a deficit? Doug Ducey has already been out there saying, I left with a $2.4 million surplus, and she turned into $1.4 billion, deficit. Now she's saying, well, yes, but you enacted all these tax cuts, which sort of left me in the deficit in the first place. You need to be talking about the things that matter here. HR 1, all very nice, but again.
Well, but I think she can make the point that if you're managing the state budget, you got to prove you can manage budgets, period. And managing the budget back in Washington, she thinks you didn't do a very good job. I should mention Republicans, the other side, Schweikert, Biggs, Carolyn Taylor, they all came out and they all just blasted her for her inability, they say, to manage a budget.
Right, and the other thing that that's difficult is as a governor, an incumbent governor, you want to be able to run on a slate of major legislative accomplishments. Well, our legislature's done a really good job of making sure that she didn't really get to accomplish a lot of her priorities. And so I again think that's why she's trying to frame it as this stylistic difference. I'm willing to work across the aisle. Unfortunately, the people I'm running against, they are super ideological.
And we have to remember the framework in which she won last time, which was very much against Trump. She was the Secretary of State. She was framed kind of as defending Arizona's elections against these attempts to, undercut the results. And so now I think they're attempting to do something similar. She's got Trump back in the White House. So whether or not all the issues she's running on, as Howie mentioned, are Arizona specific, she's trying to look at the things that two of her opponents have done in Congress and being sycophantic to Trump and kind of frame herself as the alternative to that. You know, we may not be seeing direct results of H.R. 1 now, but, you know, a lot of projections show a lot of people are going to lose Medicaid, health insurance, have their health insurance rates go through the roof because of some of the changes made federally.
But that's the point. In other words, that if she doesn't find a way to backfill some of that, the Republicans are going to say, look, this was always a state function. You know, we did some additional money during COVID. Now that we've taken away the money, what are you doing as governor there? And that's part of it. The other big difference is this ain't 2022. She's not running against somebody who was sort of universally despised, if you will, who tended to annoy Republicans. Republicans have picked up a lot more votes lately. I think the state is moving somewhat to the right, whether it's Charlie Kirk or anything else. And so this is going to be a very different race than 2022.
So, real quickly, Jessica, Karen Taylor Robson, she's fighting against Trump's America First agenda. That was her response. Biggs noted the veto of her, quote, common sense bills. And Schweikert says she can't manage a state budget. Do all of these things have traction on the GOP side, and could that traction jump over to a general?
I think on the primary side, I think we're still in a place where the MAGA mentality is going to carry the day. And that's going to be probably Katie Hobbs' biggest asset, is she's going to be able to frame it as this super ideological opponent. So I think those are probably the arguments that are going to work well with the Republican base. That's how, you know, Schweikert, everybody needs to go to win over that Republican base. It's going to be harder to make that argument to a general public.
Let's go up to Congressional District 1. Wayne, is there a clear front runner yet on the Republican side for replacing David Schweikert?
Of the 40 or so names that are being bandied about, I wouldn't say there's a clear one, because you've got the people with some sort of famous profile, you know, former NASCAR driver Danica Patrick, ASU football coach Todd Graham. I don't know how much love he has left in the Valley. You've got the people with kind of the legislative background, Representative Matt Gress, Justin Wilmoth, two competitive district lawmakers who represent parts of that district, and then you've got everybody in between. So I think it's far too early, because half these people haven't officially even said they're in the race yet.
Can we say that Gina Swoboda is making the most noise, getting the most reaction?
Well, she's getting the most reaction. You know, I think Gina's doing a little bit of this right now just to see what's out there. Is there a path for her? She is right in the business, moderate Republican area. And this is a district that, you know, despite the fact that David Schweikert had won it for years, is going to be a competitive district. She can say, I have the best chance of holding the Republicans from all parts, and B, you know, getting the Democrats perhaps to vote for me. She's, you know, always been, you know, God help us, a moderate, which is going to make her a dirty word, certainly among the folks who from the Freedom Caucus. But I think she's kind of weighing her options and saying, you know, am I needed here? I don't know. You know, I mean, you know, in terms of a Trump endorsement, this is a woman who had at one point a Trump endorsement too. So she can't say, you know, look, it's not like I'm running against, you know, MAGA.
But you got Laura Loomer's badmouth. She says she badmouths the Republican Party. You got the Freedom Caucus saying Swoboda, bad for AZ, capital letters, bad for AZ. Chaplik, Freedom, he could be running in this race. It sounds like she needs to make more friends from that part of the party.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, again, is that you run into this difficult situation where your primary voters are a much different group of people than you're going to have when you run against in the general election. And that's why I think someone like Gina Swoboda, you know, she'd probably do well in a general election. I think of people like Jim Waring, Phoenix councilman, very, you know, a conservative person, but not an extremely, you know, making lots of headlines in a negative way.
And that particular district, that's an interesting district because it's very wealthy, very well off, Northeast Valley, Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley. And that's not necessarily a MAGA stronghold.
It's not, and so that's why that's such a difficult primary, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think, yeah, to be able to win that, you have to appeal to some level of the MAGA fraction of the party, and they're clearly not super thrilled with her at the moment.
And the tricky part, of course, becomes, and we've talked about this in other races, you end up with 6 Republicans in the primary, somebody with 17% becomes the nominee.
Could that somebody be, oh, I don't know, Carrie Lake?
Someone could be anyone who ends up, having covered a lot of local races, city council races, or mayor's races where you have 5 people, once you, as Howie said, once you get down to 17% for the winner, it could be anyone. And Carrie Lake has, I will never count her out of jumping into a high-profile race in Arizona. I would say that congressional races are usually easier to win than statewide races. However, CD1 typically it kind of mirrors the statewide electorate more than a lot of these other safe races, like the race Abe Hamadeh won last year, which was a very far-right Republican district. So I wouldn't give her much better of a shot in a general election in CD1, but she does have the profile.
What about a Mark Brnovich?
Based on his comments to some overseas media, he says he wants to, something to the effect of he wants to stay in the fight politically. You can't count him out. I live in CD1. I've seen him at my Costco before, so I assume he probably lives in the district as well, even though that's not a requirement to run for Congress.
Okay, and speaking of Mark Brnovich, Howie, I guess the White House withdrew his nomination to be an ambassador. That's what he's talking to foreign media about, because he was going to be the U.S. ambassador to Serbia. What happened?
Well, it was a big announcement. I mean, his family came from Serbia. His wife came from, before the whole Czech Republic and Yugoslavia broke up, was same area there. Perfect pick. He had an on-again, off-again relationship with Trump. Trump criticized him for not doing more to find out about the fraud in the election. And then, the folks on the other side said, but you sat on the findings that you had. It was a perfect escape for him. And he figured, I don't know what happened. I checked with the White House, their radio silence there. He said something about somehow that the deep state, and I don't know whether he means the bureaucrats, in the State Department, did not want someone like him.
Here's the quote, Howie. The bureaucracy of the deep state doesn't want to serve anyone with my political, ethnic, and religious background in Serbia. What does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything. You'd want somebody with a Serbian background there. It makes no sense. I think what happened is he spoke to the Serbian Times. I tried to call him. He wasn't interested in explaining it, but he felt the need to speak to Serbian Times and say, look, I'm a victim here. How well does that play? Particularly if you decide to run for CD1, you're coming out, you're a victim? No, I don't think so.
What do you make of this, Jessica?
I think it's odd that the White House hasn't said anything about, not even just we've moved in another direction. It's been weirdly quiet. And I agree, it puts you in a weird position if you all of a sudden are running for something else. People are going to be asking this question, what happened with that Serbia thing? And so I don't know, I find the whole thing a little bizarre.
Yeah, and real quickly, there's a report regarding Trump's son-in-law plans to build a hotel in a culturally sensitive area of Belgrade. I mean, honest to goodness, that could possibly be a factor here.
It's entirely possible. They're building hotels all over the place, and it's not the first time that they've been rumored to be building something or signing their name onto something in an area of the world where then, where the politics get involved. So,
and maybe they want someone who's really on board with it.
But as both Howie and Jessica said, we have honestly no idea what happened.
And that's an interesting question, because one of the things Brnovich did have a reputation for is he's sort of a no-nonsense guy. He talked about a goat rope when it was dealing with the former Secretary of State. And he used a few colorful words that we can't say here on family television to describe some other things going on. He is sort of no-nonsense, and he may have taken a look at what the Trump family was doing, which, as Wayne reports, they love doing this. We got a Trump hotel maybe in Gaza and everything else, and said, no, I'm not going to be here to smooth the way for this.
Or are they worried that he would say something like that? All right, Jessica Adelita Grijalva, we had her on this week. I had her on just the other day, and she's still the Congresswoman-elect from CDC. When are they going to swear her in?
I mean, that's the question everyone's asking, including our 2 senators very dramatically outside of the Speaker's office this week. It's an interesting situation. I was on 2 weeks ago, and we had the same conversation. There is a belief that this has to do with the release of the Epstein files, the investigative files. She would be that magic number vote that would get the Republicans and Democrats who want them released to be able to do so. And so there's a belief that that is one of the reasons they are slow walking this. Now there's kind of some conversation about well, if you would reopen the government, we would go ahead and swear her in. It's an unprecedented thing.
Yeah.
And here's the piece in terms of the whole Epstein files. I think that Mike Johnson, the House Speaker, wants as much time as he can to lean on a couple of his own Republicans, knowing that 218th vote is out there, to get somebody to say, look, I need you to be a loyal soldier, fall on your sword despite all the things you've said. So it's still 217 when she is sworn in.
Yeah, but meanwhile, he's really starting to twist himself into knots to justify not swearing her in, because he did it previously with 2 Florida Republicans in a similar situation where they weren't in like a full session, but he still did it, and he gave some explanation that, well, they flew their families out. And I believe it was News Nation I saw ask him, well, so if she flies her family out, then will you swear her in? And then he just pivots and says it's a distraction and it's political nonsense. But he's really kind of coming up with different answers depending on the day, and none of them make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and Virginia Democrat as well. They can do a pro forma session, which basically is you gavel in, you swear her in. She does represent a part of the United States, and then you gavel out and you go like that. The response, as Jessica mentioned, our senators, our U.S. senators, kind of cornered the speaker. Later, Senator Gallego called the speaker a, quote, pedo protector.
Well, the rhetoric has gotten a little heated on this. It's not helped by the fact that it's shut down and everybody's nerves have been running raw. I think that's a little over the top. I think everybody knows what the Epstein files are all about. I don't think you need to start throwing names.
Okay. Really? You don't think there should be that?
I know.
Well,
But
knock me over right on that one, Jessica. Let's move on. They got to move. Let's move to something else that is a little interesting and confusing. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, they did an audit on the Sheriff's Office and found what?
So, dating back to, let's say, 2007, 2008, there was a civil rights lawsuit filed by Latino drivers who believed and were found to be correct that the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office was racially profiling drivers and pulling them over for that reason. And so they have since about 2013 been under court monitoring and had to make a series of reforms ordered by the court. It's a very lengthy, burdensome process that the county has claimed has cost them upwards of $200 million to follow these court orders. According to this audit, 72% of that large number weren't actually related to the reforms, and so this has caused a big hoopla within the county. The county is defending it, so we'll see. They're going to come out with their own version, but it's a weird situation.
72, even if it's not 72, let's make it 62. Let's make it 52. That's an awful lot, and especially when we keep hearing how much of a burden this is to the county.
Yeah, it's been a lot of hay has been made, especially by our Republican county supervisors who are not big fans of the monitoring, and they use that number specifically to say, look at 200, it's going to be 300 million by next year or the next 2 years, and we're wasting all this money, and they're already getting better. We don't need to do this. Let's end this monitoring nonsense. Well, turns out, as you said, a huge chunk of that money, like more than half, was either unrelated to the monitoring or only partially related, just a lot of over-calculating. So it will be interesting to see how all of those folks who led kind of the charge, county supervisors, will react now that it's undercut their argument.
I am anxious to find out how an $11,000 golf cart fits into monitoring whether the sheriff's department is pulling over people for the crime of driving while brown.
You forgot about the $30,000 of car washes, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah. Well, but if you don't have clean sheriff's cars, people won't pull over for you. Don't you understand?
We've also got office renovations. We got cable TV bills, new vehicles. I mean, full-time salaries, Howie, for people who barely had anything to do at all with this court monitoring situation.
But this is very typical. You try to put everything into a bin. It's like when you get a federal grant. All of a sudden, a bunch of people working for the state or working for the city, oh, well, they need to be funded by the federal grant and free up the money there. They thought they had free money. Now, it's not free money. It's just coming out of a different pocket, but then they get to use it as ammunition, as Wayne has said.
And talk about the state law. The state law is impacted here, is it not?
Yeah, well, yeah, because, I mean, if you're not using money how it's supposed to be used in different funds, then obviously that's a no-no. But again, the big question also is it negligence or was it purposeful? Like, there's been a lot of folks involved in this who have not been fans of this monitoring since it began. So was the intent to inflate the numbers to say this is a big waste of money for taxpayers, or was it just negligent bookkeeping? That's the big question we're going to be looking at moving forward.
And as you mentioned, there are caps on how much the county can spend, and things that are by way of court monitor that are like a federal requirement don't count against that cap. So if these expenses were actually just normal expenses, the county did exceed its cap and violated the state constitution if all of this is true.
Yeah, and who goes after that, Howie? What's the next step in that particular investigation?
Well, that becomes the Attorney General, who is a Democrat who might be more than willing to go ahead and kick around the Board of Supervisors and the sheriff and things like that. There's also provisions generally in a lot of these things for citizen lawsuits, that any person who is aggrieved by this because I paid my taxes can go to court and say, I want some sort of finding and I want a refund of the taxes. Now, I don't know it's going to happen. I'm waiting for the county to do its own response, and then we'll see what we've got. Are we talking 32%, 62%, 72%? And then once we get to see it, I want to hear the county's justification. And then the Attorney General may say, this is a woman who doesn't shy away from fights. She may say, you okay? Okay, no.
Yeah, and she might also say whatever in response that she hears from the County Board of Supervisors. And right now, as we say, they're kind of digging in a little bit.
Yeah, and so like Jessica said, we kind of have to wait to see if they come up with their own audit, or if they're, once they dig through this existing audit, which came from, people appointed by the court monitor, they're going to probably point out areas where they think the audit was incorrect, and so there's still really a lot of unknowns we have to wait for.
And there's one other piece. Now the county is saying, well, yeah, but we didn't include a lot of our legal fees in there, so even if these fees weren't supposed to be here, well, we've got some other stuff, so we'll show you.
Speaking of legal fees, it sounds like Justine Wadzak will not have to pay penalties, sanctions regarding her dropped civil rights suit against Tucson.
You mean this is the last time we get to talk about
it? Might be, Howie.
We certainly hope. As we all know, Justine Wadzak was a state senator from Tucson who decided that driving 71 miles an hour on Speedway Boulevard in a 35-mile-an-hour zone was not a big problem. Her Tesla was running out of batteries, and the officer was pulling her over because she was a lawmaker and should have known better. And the officer didn't give her a ticket then because they were in session, gave her a ticket later. She ended up going to traffic school, should have been the end of it. She files a civil rights lawsuit against the city and the officers saying they were all out to get me as part of a vast conspiracy, and then doesn't really pursue the lawsuit. Lost her attorney somewhere along the way in there, and finally didn't show up for a court hearing to find out why you're losing your attorney, and then dropped the case and said, no harm, no foul. Well, the city said, wait a second, we spent a lot of money defending this thing, thinking it was going to court. We spent a lot of money just preparing for this hearing that she was actually at a Turning Point event here in Phoenix when she was supposed to be in federal court in Tucson, and asked for over $7,000. The judge sort of said, well, yeah, but it's sort of, it wasn't bad faith, and so I'm going to let her off the hook.
It wasn't bad faith because the judge apparently agreed that she confused the dates and the times due to stress. That's why she said that she was at the Turning Point thing instead of a court hearing.
Yeah, she's pointed out that she's had some family issues. I think a family member who was injured in an accident of some sort, and she's pointed to that, and the judge kind of looked at that and said, okay. We've seen in cases time and time again where maybe to the layman or myself, they might look a little frivolous. Judges are still quite hesitant to issue the sanctions unless they think it is really blatantly obvious. Because again, these sanctions are supposed to stop frivolous lawsuits, but they don't want to stop people who might have a legitimate lawsuit from bringing their case. So it's really that they're balancing when they make these decisions.
Justine Wadzak, does she have a future in Arizona politics?
Well, I never rule anyone out here, but I believe she's working with Turning Point now, so that would definitely give her a leg up in some areas of the state, so who knows?
You never know. Another former lawmaker, Wayne, was kind of in the news regarding court hearings and court penalties. Lisa Sun?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she actually just received 24 months probation for breaking a restraining order that was filed against her by some folks from Tolleson, some city employees who way back when she was a lawmaker accused her of harassing them during a meeting, cursing at them, yelling at them, screaming at them, and then at one point making some offhand comments during an event down in Tucson that she wanted to throw one of them off a balcony. So she long ago got a restraining order against her. Apparently during a hearing about that restraining order, confronted them at a coffee shop nearby. She says she didn't recognize them, but Judge didn't buy that, didn't find it credible, so found her guilty of violating it, and now she's on probation.
And I think Lisa has the same political future as our good friend Justine.
that was gonna be
I
my
think-
next question.
I think that they may go out and do something internally like Justine is doing, but in terms of election, they become the butt of a joke.
She's
and
still
you
on the
can't.
school board, though.
Did probation make sense to you as far as a penalty here?
I think so. I think, jailing lawmakers, hard. I think that to the extent you're saying you're going to stay out of trouble because now I've got this over your head for the next 24 months. If you jaywalk, you're in trouble. Again, this goes back to the point about what judges want to do in terms of bad faith and everything else. I don't think judges are interested in punishing people on these kind of cases. I think their aim is to deter future bad action, and that's what this is about.
Okay, because it just seems like she already kind of proved that once that she wasn't quite up to that. And
That's what the judge said in the hearing, though. She said, I am punishing you for breaking this restraining order, none of these prior allegations, I'm for this exact act. And she was very explicit with her. These are the things you can and can't do over the course of these next 24 months. Do you understand? And she had her affirmatively say she understands. And that includes essentially extending the restraining order
Yes.
for those 24 months. So she
Yeah.
can't contact those
And
people.
we have a long history of lawmakers here who are winding up in legal trouble. She's just the latest.
all right, panel, good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.